we just thank you for being here and taking the time to be present to your children and the children that you serve's needs. With that, we will go ahead and begin our presentation.
10. When I was 4, my mom died. I realized once I got a little older that there was something different from me and most kids. I wasn't like my friends. There was something a little different, that my mom died and they still had both of their parents.
My name is Brent, and I'm 22 years old, and I got involved with COJ my junior year of high school due to my father passing away. I was about 16 at the time when my father passed away, and that's what brought me to COJ. But earlier in my life, when I was 4 years old, my mother passed away as well.
When there's a trauma or loss, there's a ripple effect. And it's not just that one child, it's every child who comes into contact with that child.
Children learn from their models about how to cope with the tragedies and the challenges that they experience in life. So when we help a child and we model for them that we're taking care of ourselves as a parent and that we are also able to listen to them and that their experience is important to us, then we're actually being able to affect change within every member of the family.
As I got older and stuff, I thought about it of what my father was doing for us and raising me and my two brothers, and they weren't even his kids, they were my mother's, and that changed my heart. Then I saw that a man could step up to the plate and become a father for kids that aren't even his.
My dad is amazing. He does pretty much the work of two parents by himself. Sometimes it's just hard.
I think that we can support a grieving child and a teen by trying to listen to them and see what they need and see what they're not saying. Children don't come to us and say, "I'm really mad today and I miss mom making breakfast for me." Children talk to us in a way that we have to learn their language and learn how to interpret what they're saying to us. So it might probably come out in behavior. They might act out or they might be withdrawn. And we can help children by learning what that language is and then being able to respond and be able to provide for them what they need.
Just talking to people, even if they have a similar story, like Austin losing his mother or losing their best friend in a car accident, we still all experience and hate to lose our loved ones. And it hurt a lot to lose my father. He was my best friend, and so with COJ, I started, I went to the first meeting and I didn't really speak and I didn't really talk and I just kind of listened, and I was nervous and scared, and opening it up and sharing with the group definitely has helped me tremendously.
And that's actually another element that's really key for the healing is connections. That's one of the things I love about the support services that I see in this community. Companions on a Journey is a beautiful example of that. I've been witness to what a difference it makes when there's been a trauma in the schools, and Companions on the Journey, Sheila comes in and she's able to talk to kids about how to be calm, how to cope, how to rebalance.
With your slinky, sometimes you're unbalanced, which when you're down here, you're kind of sad. And then when you're up here, you're kind of balanced and happy. And grief is sometimes balanced and unbalanced.
One of the things I learned was I couldn't really balance it alone. I found out that to remove walls, I needed other people. Without COJ, I definitely would have started, taking my wall down and opening up to the world and allowing others to love me. And I'm very, very thankful for them every day.
I think COJ has definitely helped me because I needed to know there was other people out there that have lost their family and know what it feels like.
My privilege to work with these families or groups is that I get to share some of the things I've learned through medical school and training in child psychiatry, and then from these other experiences. But it's really they're the ones who are doing the heavy lifting, and I really feel honored to get to witness what they're able to achieve.
I know that there's a lot more things that go on behind the scenes, and there's a lot of grateful donors and companies out there that help support COJ and keep us running. to go in and spread child awareness with grief, and help children who have experienced death find a balance. And as an ambassador, I'm very, very thankful for those people that have helped COJ so far, and that I continue to get involved with COJ.
So when I was a teenage, well, when I was a child, I can go back on my grief journey and I can look back remembering before my grandmother, great grandmother died when I was just about 3 years old. I remember her sharing with me that if my mom had not had a baby brother or sister for me, when she got to heaven, she was going to ask God to send me one. And the month after my grandmother's birthday, my grandmother's death, my mother became pregnant, and 2 days before my great grandmother's birthday, my sister Julie was born. So for me, heaven was everything you could ever imagine and more. So it gave me a great picture of what heaven was. Then, when I was a teenager, I had gone to one school and I had been in grade school. Then I went to Macaulay High School. My parents moved to Fairfield, and then I was transferred to Baden High School. And while I was transferred there, a couple of months after I began there, I had one of my best friends was killed in a car accident that I had known all my childhood. And then 2 weeks later, another one of my friends was killed in a car accident. And then I felt like I was lost and alone. And then a teacher that I'd had from grade school transferred into the school. And I thought, oh, thank God, because I finally have somebody who understands what I'm going through. And he came to school, he had a parent teacher conference, and on his way home, he was killed. So within a short period of time, I had 3 people that died. And then the next day, after his death, it's so ironic, these were all so close together. A boy that I hardly knew in my class, that was in my class with my teacher, his father dropped dead of a heart attack. And the fear that was inside of me, I could not wrap my mind around it. And I didn't share it with my mother, and it took me years to figure out why I didn't share that fear with my mother and father. And it was because my mother and my father had almost died when I was 5 years old. And after my father recovered, he had been in like a coma and everything for a month. Um, when he came out, my mother ended up having a nervous breakdown. And I think in my mind, I thought, oh my gosh, I can't push my mommy over because she had such a hard time when my dad almost died. How's she going to be if I share what it's like to feel what I'm feeling like with my friend's death? So my field in going out and working with grief children and teens, I have a passion for it. In the state of Ohio, the need is, or in the US, the need is great. Um, Throughout the United States, 1 in 14 children will experience the death of a parent or a sibling. And that doubles by the time they're 25. And not captured in those losses are the aunts, the uncles, the cousins, the friends, the teachers. So, and then we look at how many lives um, have been have died through this COVID-19, we're experiencing a lot of grief. And in the state of Ohio, 1 in 11 children will experience a death. So even here in our own community, those numbers are greater than what is typical throughout the United States. And you can see 549,000 youth will lose a parent or a sibling by the age of 25. And again, that does not count those other losses. So that's 41,000, almost 42,000 children within our community. That's a lot. That's a lot. So our mission is to reach out to those who grieve, to educate those who do not understand, and offer support to individuals, schools, businesses, and organizations. We're able to do this because of grants, and we're fortunate to give most of our services at free of charge to the bereaved. We create our values, and in creating those values, we create an accepting environment. We provide friendship and support, a sharing and caring bond, respecting silence, and understanding grief is not time bound. In fact, for children, it's ongoing. All the milestones of their lives, all the way through adulthood, they are going to grieve the death of their loved one. listening with empathy is so, so important. And we're giving the confidence to them to share their feelings. So I always say a child who is old enough to love is old enough to grieve. No matter how old or how young we are, anyone who loses someone feels a loss. Our abilities to understand and express can vary. And children oftentimes hide their feelings, just as what I had done, in effort to make the adults around them feel better. They don't want to make their adults feel worse because they already see them grieving the death of a parent or a loved one. So, Anne Marie, I thought you could take us from here for a while.
So when we talk about children and grief, we have to look at their processes differently. Everyone grieves differently. No two people grieve the same way. I wanted to start out by saying that. So the way that one child may grieve may not be the way another child grieves. And so it's a process. It's a process of learning how they grieve, oftentimes first identifying that they really are having grief experiences, and then really meeting them where they are. We know that there are these 5 stages of grief that we go through. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross talks about 5 stages of grief. The interesting thing about that is that it is descriptive. It's not prescriptive. So some people may go through all of those stages of grief. Some people may not. They may skip. They may go back and forth between the different stages of grief. So no two people can grieve the same way because that process is different for everyone. For children especially, oftentimes there is a delayed reaction to grief. And I wonder sometimes if that delayed reaction is, excuse me, because they don't know how to handle it. Their emotions are so raw and so vulnerable. When we look at children, they may just shut down, and we don't understand that they're actually starting that grieving process. They grieve in bursts. So a child, their little hearts can't deal with the grief the same way our adults do. They will grieve. They will be maybe sad, or they may be acting out, and then they will go play. And you're thinking, well, they're fine now. They've moved on. But in reality, they just have to stop grieving for a while, and then they go back to their grief process. So it's important that we watch children. Most of the time, the way we understand when a child is really having some grief is through their behavior. Oftentimes people will say, that they're just acting out. Well, when children act out, there's a reason why they act out. They may not be getting their needs met, and we often call that manipulation. And that's one of the things that I have such a hard time with, is that what manipulation really is. Manipulation is trying to get your needs met by unconventional means. So if you're not hearing a child when they're having a hard time, they will act out. They will do things to let you know in their own way, behaviorally, that they're struggling. We have to identify what that need is and really meet them where they are. So children at any age grieve. A child from the age of 0 to 3 needs love, compassion, caring. It's important that we understand that just because a child is nonverbal, does not have the verbal skills, does not mean that they are not feeling the pain and loss of that person, especially their moms. When in 0 to 3, the nurturing that comes from a mother having been in her womb and then not having that any longer, not hearing their voice or feeling her presence, is very difficult. They don't have the language to express their feelings, so they may cry more. They may be more responsive or less responsive. They may seem like there's an emptiness. They obviously cannot express it, but they mirror how we act. Children often watch us to see how we are responding to things, and babies at from 0 to 3 are really have us on their radar. So the ways that we can help a child from 0 to 3 is to spend more time with them, to provide them with comfort, to snuggle them more often. I love those snugglies where you wrap a baby in it, and they just feel so safe. I know for my children when they were colicky, one of the things that I always did was to wrap them real tight in a blanket and just hold them, and they felt safe. So one of the things that we have to provide for children at this age is a sense of safety and a sense of love, and support, and to decrease the anxiety through the environment around them. They look to the environment and how to respond. They respond to that environment. So we have to make that a very safe place for them at that age. Children from ages 3 to 5 don't understand the permanence of death. They may think that the person that died is going to come back. They don't understand that they're gone forever. So their fears increase when that person doesn't come back, right? People come in and out of our lives, but if they don't see them again, especially a parent, they maybe wondering what they did wrong. So it's important that we let children know that someone had died, and we have to put it in their developmental understanding. So speak to them in a language that they'll understand. Mommy was sick, or daddy was sick, or their bodies just got tired. However you can explain it to a child in a way that you think they'll understand is so important. And these children, so where they are developmentally and how to talk to them. But we have to let them know that just because you get sick doesn't mean you die, but maybe that they had an illness, and then they went away and they're not coming back, but I'm still here. I'm here for you, and I love you, and I'm going to take care of you, and we're going to figure this out. So it's important that we encourage children. We talk to them honestly, and we let them know that we're there for them. We can explain death to them as part of nature, part of an experience. The one thing that I say about that, though, is when children get sick, if we use the word that someone got sick, we don't want them to think that if they get sick, they're going to die. So we really have to be careful in how we explain this to children. We want to avoid passed away, went to sleep, gone home, those kinds of terms, because children interpret it differently than we do as adults. They often regress. So a child who's been potty trained may start having accidents, especially in the evening. They may start having more baby talk, or seeming like their milestones are regressing, and they may for a while. But with the love and support that you're giving them, they will move back to where they were prior to the grief experience. The best way we find to work with children, and most children actually, is through play and creativity, through allowing them to just express their feelings through the different ways of artistry. So building things, or drawing things, painting, creating, helps a child to express their feelings. So many of you are dealing with children 6 to 12 years of age. And that is really a large gap in terms of where children are developmentally. From the time a child is maybe 7 or 8, they're still at that concrete thinking, and they move more into their abstract thinking. So they understand it better the older that they get. They understand death, but they may not understand that physical experience of people going away. And whatever your spirituality is, oftentimes will help them in understanding heaven, or whatever it is that the terms that you use to describe where someone goes once they die. Children sometimes think in terms of angels. Um, Ghosts are often scary, obviously. They see Casper the Friendly Ghost, but most ghosts are scary. And they often have hard time in the evening because that's when the ghosts come out. So it's important that we explain to them that angels are in heaven, they come to us, however you explain it to them, it has to be in a kind and comforting way. Um, as children get older, obviously we explain it to them in more adult terms. When a child is 11 or 12, we use older adult terms to explain it to them. Um, Commonly attempts to hide their emotions. They may feel they don't want to upset people. So children don't often talk about their grief. They don't talk about the pain and the sadness. We have children draw pictures of their hearts. And in doing that, it's amazing what those pictures tell us. And they will tell you what goes on for them. A lot of times we'll see a child who will draw a heart and have it notched out, that's the piece of my heart that is with mommy or daddy or grandma or whoever it is that they are missing, or they will have a broken heart. And as we know as adults, we feel the pain the same way. We may feel like our heart is broken. We may want to explain to them how we're feeling, not to put words into their mouth, but maybe to help them understand that you too are feeling that pain, or you too are having a hard time with this loss. Um, for counselors, we know that the therapeutic relationship is half the battle. In making that connection, it is so important that we make the connection for children to feel safe enough to open up to us and to talk to us, so that they can tell us if they feel different than their peers, that they are maybe blaming themselves, that they may think that they've done something wrong. So often what we find is that children may have a grief experience at one age and not reveal it until much later. And there's many different reasons why that happens, but they may be acting out and people are just assuming that they have behavioral problems, because that's how we often diagnose that children are having issues, or that's the first time that we actually understand that children are having issues, is when their behaviors are not in accordance to what we expect, or in accordance to the developmental place where they are. It's very important that we establish a routine for them, that we give them structure, that we support them. And the one thing that we constantly say is that we have to be present to them. Really sit there and listen to them, not just with your head, but really with your heart, and to understand the pain that they're going through. And if you create that forum for them, they will talk to you. Maybe not the first time, maybe not even the second time, but eventually, when they're feeling safe, they will talk to you. You want to set that time aside for them. If you're a teacher, you may want to give them a few minutes after class, or right before lunch, to just say, hey, I know you're really struggling, and I want you to know I'm here for you, or I just want you to know I'm here for you. And they may begin to open up, and may take some time, but they will eventually open up when they feel safe enough to share their feelings, and maybe the differences that they're experiencing. Communicate that you know that they are grieving. Let them, give them the forum. Let them know that that this may be difficult for them, and that you want to be there for them, that you want to listen to them, and listen. Just open up your heart and listen. Oftentimes, we don't have to say anything with our words. A hug, or a pat on the back, or a touch of their hand. And I know that that is so difficult during COVID, but anything that you can do to let them know that I'm here for you. Oftentimes, it's through our eyes and our facial expressions, as much as they can see with masks at this point, but just let them know that you're here, and you know how to do that. You do that every day with your students, with the people that are close to you. You let them know through your eyes and through your words. Um, so I would say just be present to them. Teenagers are just a whole different can of worms. I work with teenagers every day, and I have to tell you, I just love working with them because they will tell you how it is. But then they will keep their deepest, darkest secrets or their deepest, darkest pains to themselves until we let them know it's safe. So developing a sense of justice and fairness, it's not fair that my loved one got taken away. It's not okay. It doesn't feel right. I need them so much. And children will begin to talk, or teens will begin to talk to you once they feel safe. And it takes much longer for teens to feel safe. Um, they they oftentimes don't talk about what's going on. So again, creating that forum, making that time, if you're a parent, take them out for ice cream, take them anywhere that you think that they will talk to you. I found with my own children that the best time to talk to them was when we were driving somewhere, because I couldn't look at them directly. When my kids were smaller and they had to sit in the back seat, it was even better for them because they could talk to me and they didn't have to see my facial expressions. They could just talk and talk, and I listened. So anytime that you can get a child to a place where you can talk to them and maybe just create a place of safety for them. Um, talk to them. If you're a parent and they've lost one other parent, one of their big concerns may be what happens if you die too. It's so important that kids understand what the plan is. If I'm not here, grandma and grandpa will take care of you, or aunt so and so, or whomever will be there to take care of you. It's not a child's responsibility to become the man of the house. We often hear that, that kids feel like they need to take on the responsibilities when a dad dies, for example, and there is the oldest male is expected to become the man of the house. That puts so much pressure on our teens, and is so difficult for them. And it's not even necessarily something that gets said. It's just an expectation that they feel. And so it's important to let them know what the expectation is for them as a child. You are still my child, and I will take care of you, and we will be okay. And we may have some hard times because this is hard. What we're going through is really so difficult, and acknowledge to them that it's hard for you too. One of the things that we frequently find is our Mending Hearts program allows parents to talk to their teens. That, first of all, the day-to-day life changes drastically, and the parent that is left behind has so many additional things to do. And they're trying hard to keep it all together in terms of basic needs, or running a kid here or there, and then trying to grieve themselves. The Mending Hearts gives them a forum where they can talk. Parents don't want to upset kids, so they don't talk about it. Kids don't want to upset parents, and so they don't talk about it. So they go through a day in not talking about how hard it is, how much it hurts, how much they miss their loved one, their parent. And it's difficult to have that conversation, but it's more difficult and more damaging not to. So I would encourage you to talk to your children. If there is, if you have experienced a recent loss, and just say to them, you know what, this is really hard. And, um, and I want to just talk to you about how hard it is for me. And I want to know how hard it is for you, obviously on an age appropriate level. Obviously, sharing appropriate information with them. Children watch us at all stages, and they model our behavior. Even teenagers will model your behavior because they're watching to see what you're going to do and how you are going to deal with this. So one of the things that we have to do is to let them know that you are always available to talk to them. Be clear and honest. Admit what you don't know. Give them as much information as you can about what happened to their parent or their loved one. I think that the more honest you are, kids know when we're not being honest with them, and the more honest you are about what happened, the better they will be able to grieve. Um, Encourage them to identify who they can trust and who they can talk to. I can tell you that the one person in the world my children would always go to would be my sister, and I made sure that they had someone other than me to talk to. I think it's so important that we let them know, this is the person, this is your person besides me that you can talk to, and I will never ask them what you talked about. It's important that they have that safe person that they can talk to, even about you, just because they need to be able to, to just say whatever they need to say. What you can tell them is you can talk to that person and they will tell you, they will be there for you. If you are unsafe, that is the only time that they will talk to me about what you're feeling or what's going on for you. So model healthy behaviors also. Talking, boxing, gardening. During this COVID time, one of the things that I frequently told the teens I was working with was, just because you're social distancing doesn't mean that you have to social isolate. You can go in the backyard. You can put your feet in the grass. It's amazing what happens when you're having a very hard day and you walk outside. Now, I don't know about today because we did have snow, but generally walk outside, take your shoes and socks off, and just put your feet in the grass and ground yourself. And it's amazing what happens when you allow yourself to just be in that moment and, with the earth. So bodily responses to grief, children might not talk about what's going on for them. They may not understand, but they may know that their tummy really hurts or that they're having headaches. So all of those somatic complaints are oftentimes their experiences to grief that maybe they can't talk about. They're not hungry. When we're sad, we're not hungry. When we are at a loss for what to do or say, we may have higher anxiety. We might have more acting out behavior, or we might just go into ourselves. Kids act the same way, so they might have nightmares. They might wake up frequently. For younger children, they may be wetting the bed again. Kids may have anxiety attacks, and we've seen that. Can we go back, Grace? I'm sorry. So there's maybe an increase in fears for children. They may be afraid of you leaving the house. If you are their other parent, they might be afraid something's going to happen to you if you leave the house. They may call you more frequently. They may be more concerned about your safety, because they also want to know that they have you and that you are not leaving and that you will be there to protect them as well. They may not want to go to school because they're worried about that. And when they're in school, they may not be able to concentrate, and they struggle in school. We often see kids struggling in school, maybe not doing as well with their schoolwork because they're so preoccupied with their grief. So that's why it's so important that we allow them to verbalize what's going on for them. Okay. So, complicated grief. For children who have already experienced grief, COVID-19 brings up so many issues. Kids hear in the media that people are dying, and they hear that, there are, we have to keep ourselves safe, that, that COVID-19 is around. I can tell you my 5-year-old granddaughter thought that COVID was a person, that COVID was going to get her. So it's important that we explain to children in very concrete terms what COVID-19 is. And I had to explain to her that it's kind of like, in her mind, the boogeyman. So it's important that developmentally we explain to kids what COVID really means. For a child who is grieving and then is having all of these changes in their lives, the changes in school routines, being online may be more difficult for them. Their developmental milestones may be canceled. Just playing football or soccer and having that release of energy has always been so helpful for children who are grieving, and now they don't have that. They're missing people in their lives that were their support systems, their family, their friends, and they're worried about their concerns, the safety concerns and the concerns for other people around them. So it's important that we take that extra time and really pay attention to what may be going on for them at this time. So limit their media, the news, what they're seeing. Talk to them about COVID-19 and provide them with, there's so many resources out there. Help them to understand on their developmental level what's going on. Ask them what they're missing. Ask them how this feels to them. This is a year of so many changes. And I think for teenagers, it's probably the most difficult. One of the things that I saw with the teenagers that I was working with is, teens use a lot of social media. And they're all over, they're on, well, they're not on Facebook anymore from what I understand, but there's Twitter and there's Snapchat and there's, GroupMe and all of these other social forums. What I found when we had to socially isolate or socially distance and we were in our homes, our students weren't using those forums. They truly shut down. And it's so important that we keep those lines of communication open for them. Tell them that they can still go outside, allow them to take hikes, in local parks, allow them to get outside. It's so important that we get that fresh air and we get that vitamin D. So create fun activities for them as well. Sheila, did you want to go from here or?
Well, yeah, that would be great. So we have some more complicated, when there's a death by suicide, it's usually sudden. The death may be violent. Some of our children may have witnesses or found their loved one, and there's all kinds of things. This is from generations. There's the stigma, the shames, and what we really have to do is be able to talk to our children about that this was an illness of the mind, an illness of the brain. That just like any other type of illness, this person that they loved who died by suicide had an illness, and we have to talk about the feelings that they're feeling. They may have anger, rejection, abandonment, guilt. So many times children have come to me and said, my friend died by suicide. Was it because I didn't invite them to be on our intramural soccer team? Even though they didn't like to play soccer, all these things go through their mind. So I think when we're talking about this type of death, again, we have to be honest with them. And many times I will say with complicated grief, ask the child what they know. So many times parents will want to protect their children and not telling them what has happened. But I think by saying, tell me what you know. I remember someone had a loved one died by suicide, and the mother said, I'm not letting them know what took place. And she said, I'm just going to say this. And I said, how about if you asked your child first? And when she asked her 8-year-old what had taken place, the 8-year-old knew everything. So I think it's very important to be able to be honest with them and use, again, the appropriate age. We don't want to have them feel like that you've betrayed them. You want that trust to continue on. I had a girl once in one of my schools. Her father had died by suicide when she was an infant. And when she was in high school, I remember a friend of hers had died by suicide, and she was with a group of friends. And she said, I don't know what I would do if I ever had someone in my family die by suicide. And her group of friends told her, what do you mean? Your father died by suicide when you were a baby, and told her how he died. So then she mistrusted her mother, and she didn't trust her for quite some time. So I think, again, we really have to be truthful, age appropriate, and it may change over time. What you might tell them as a young child, then you have to think about, okay, we need to revisit and sit down and talk more. Um, we also too, with death with overdose, again, there's many different illnesses again. And I think we need to talk to children about that. Children and teens and some adults have perceptions that it was avoidable. I had a sister, manic depressive bipolar, and I can tell you, her addiction was real. So again, we have to bring down the stigma, the shames, and the isolations, because they're common. Um, and I think it's very important for us as families to be able to talk about, it's okay to have the feelings and stuff, but we need to talk about this. And we need to talk about not numbing your pain, but rather talking about your pain. The same way, we will just touch briefly on these two things with incarceration and deportation. Children are grieving as well. And we really do not realize how much they are grieving until something happens, when a police officer comes to their school, or there's tornado drills. We had children once that we were doing a group. We told them they were going to have a tornado drill. We went out into the hall. They had to cuddle up like little caterpillars, and two of the students started crying, and we went up and asked, how we could help them, tell us what's going on. And they said, are you sure that this is not a raid and that they're going to come and take us away? Because this is what they did when they came and took my daddy and my grandpa. And so the challenging the fears, and the same way, even with police, when there's been murders or any type of violent type death, sometimes it takes longer for the police to be able to get there, until that they're there, but until they have the site secured, a police may not be able to do some of the things that they normally would do. So it's important for them to understand those things and talk about it. So unaddressed grief can cause academic performances and learnings to change, risky behavior, depression, isolation, and changes in temperament and behavior. I often use a slinky. We need to create a balance for these children. We need to talk about that there's going to be many ups and downs, and to be able to teach children who are the people, the places, and things that you can turn to. And like Anne Marie said, it takes a village. It's not just me that is helping my children, but it's also it is an aunt, an uncle, a teacher, a counselor, all those different people, so that they know. Many times in schools, I will tell teachers to create a little index card, so that when that child's feeling anxious or overwhelmed, they could pull that card out, and then they could go to the principal's office or the nurse's office, somewhere that you've designated as a safe place. I think it's very important to do. So ways we can help them to cope: acknowledge the loss and the reality of it, embrace the pain of the loss together, remember the person who has gone, say their name, create things, create rituals, develop a new self-identity. It's important to search for meaning and receive ongoing support. And when we need that ongoing support, don't be afraid to ask for it, because many of you, if you're a bereaved parent or a widowed person, it's hard. I mean, these new identities and everything. Who am I and what am I supposed to be when I grow up? Children think the same thing. Children will mirror our reflections, and we have to model healthy coping skills. Get up every day, brush your teeth, shower, utilize the tools. When we can have some order to our day in a day that is chaotic, it'll help them to know, even just by making their bed, that something was prepared for them. I'll never forget being at a group one of my first groups after I was widowed with my 3 children. And a mother shared, I can't get out of bed every day. I pull myself out 2 minutes before they get off the bus, and there they come home. And here I am grieving. And then the next breath, she said, and my son got arrested this weekend. What's up with that? Well, think about it. If she's broken, if she's become crippled, can't a child become crippled? So it's important to model healthy coping skills. Identify your support systems, put your oxygen mask on. Identify other caring adults your children can contact with. So you may have, if it's a child that's in school, allow families to help you. If they want to bring your child to a ball game, or if somebody says, how can I help? So, it would really help maybe sometimes just to invite them over. But again, at first, the child is scared to leave you. So identify those caring adults, regardless of whether you're feeling crippled or not. You do need to be able to create your balance, develop that routine. It's important for you and your child. Routine will help a child to bounce back quickly, but you also have to know if they bounce out of that routine, to give them a little leeway and slack. Um, and have regular family meetings. I think you have to discuss together the decisions that you have, allow them to share, and don't say, you shouldn't feel that way. Tell me why you're feeling. Tell me what's going on in your brain. I love this, ways you can help. So, and this is really just the milestones. Remember, children will grieve at every milestone. So it's important as parents, when our children have suffered a death, that no matter what grade they're in, if it's kindergarten through 12th grade, if they're a freshman in high school to a senior year in high school, allow their teachers and their counselors to know what has taken place in your child's life. And right before the anniversaries, deaths, or even their birthdays, all the different things that they have, shoot a note to that counselor and say, my child may be okay, but I wanted to make you aware of, this would have been their father's birthday. This would have been their sister's birthday. This is the time that they died. Just to be able to do that. So I think it's important. And I think for all of us, the memories are very important. We have to try to imagine how our loved ones would celebrate their milestones and stuff. And even for us, I don't call it the anniversary of death. I call it their birthday in heaven, and I talk to my children, I said, can you imagine what that's like? I remember when my husband turned 21 in heaven, my son, who was an adult at the time, took a beer and drank a beer on his father's grave. And I thought it was great because that was an expression of love. It's give yourself the time and the patience you have to give it to others. When we love one another, when we love our children, when we allow them to cry, when we cuddle up with them, I think it's so important because that expresses your emotion. So allow yourself to laugh, allow yourself to cry, allow yourself to yawn, allow yourself to exercise, because all those produce an endorphin that help. They're kind of like a natural medicine that help our body. I would say savor, search and savor. Search at who am I? Instead of looking at all the things that you don't have, look at what you were given and say, we're on a new adventure now. So what do we need to do today? I don't know about you. Is your mind scrambled? Because children have problems sometimes as well as adults, just doing simple tasks with their memories and everything. So we have to give ourselves a little bit of break there, but also be able to give ourselves the blessings, that come out of it. And you'll notice things. I think my children that we work with, and we work with over 1,000 children a month, the little blessings in life, these children have grown up fast, and what they savor are the simple things in life. And I'm just in awe of what our seniors have shared. And seniors meaning, the high school students. It's just unbelievable. Take charge, make your decisions that will strengthen you. Learn as much as you can about grief. Tonight's topics session is one. We'll have other ones that will help other people, like being widowed or losing a child. We're going to be having these each month. Open yourself up, sharing your grief. I often tell people to act like they're grabbing an imaginary ball and grip their hand and grip out. And this ball of grief affects your body, mind, your spirit. So we've got to find ways that we've got to work through it. And I would say get yourself a journal, note your progress, keep a diary, and eat and exercise. It's so, so important. Sometimes we need the comfort foods when we are grieving, but
Use
you got
my
to watch alcohol and drugs. And we've got just about a minute. So the biggest thing that I would say here is listen, listen, listen. Create a safe place for your child where they can share. Be fully present to them. When they say, "Mom, I've got to talk to you," or "Dad, I need to talk to you," even if you're late for work, your child, while they're grieving, needs you. Put down that phone. Give them the wholehearted attention. Make eye contact with them. Lean forward. Nod your head, be patient with their silence, and don't interrupt them and don't judge them. And again, use that simple language and reassure them that no matter what they say or do or what they've done, that they were not responsible for their loved one's death. And let them know it's okay to get upset. Again, avoid some of these things is, you shouldn't be feeling this way. He lived a good life. You might not be having this problem if you had. You don't really mean that. We have to listen to what they're saying. Tell me about, I'm wondering. I remember telling a child, "Tell me what's going on in your mind." And he goes, "What's going on? It's so big, Miss Sheila, I can't even wrap my brain around it." So the conversation told me, wow, this child's overwhelmed. I think it's important to give them some outlets, punching bags, pillows, paper to rip up, soil to till, gardening, all those different things, creating little memory jars, doing different things, crafts. Oh my gosh, all of our kids, K through 12, seniors in high school, all boys schools, they all love creating things. So as families create things. These are some of our little activities, creating an ornament, doing a body scan, telling me where, what you feel in your body and what supports you. And we also have a pathway to healing, butterfly release, and we painted rocks. And as families, you can do these things. And our Mending Hearts for Grieving Children and our pathway to healing, I truly would encourage you to join those because we feel a family that grieves together, heals together. This is a book of resources, and we'll be happy to send you this PowerPoint presentation tonight so that you can further look at those. And we are also, I would say, any of these organizations right here really help. The Coalition to Help Grieving Children for Educators is amazing. They have PowerPoints and everything. And I would say for parents as well, we can never learn enough in supporting our grieving children.
Mhm.
We want you to know that every day we're here to be present to you and to each person's present moment.